Hello, everyone. Welcome to the October Booktube Chicks Book Club live show for Damsel by Elana K. Arnold. This month we read Damsel, and tonight we are going to be doing a live discussion on it. If you've never been to one of our live shows before, we are going to do about 10 minutes of non-spoiler initial thoughts and ratings on the book, and then we will go into spoiler discussions. If you don't know who we are the Booktube Chicks, and I'm going to go ahead and let everybody introduce themselves, starting with Kathleen, since you're right next to me.
Are we talking about the book too?
Sure.
Hi everyone, I'm Kathleen. My channel is for the love of books. I really don't know how I feel about this book. I was the first one to finish it. I would have to say, for any of you who are interested in reading, this is definitely not YA, and the book does not give you trigger warnings. So when I read the sexual assault that occurred in this book, I was in Alive, and it was really hard for me to keep collected because it just happened. For me, it happened out of nowhere. So I was really uncomfortable. And this whole book is, although the book is meant to make you uncomfortable, so just be aware. There is humiliation. There is, for me, emotional abuse. There is, again, the sexual assault. So just be aware when reading this book if you're interested in reading this book. But for those of you who don't know, this is more of a little bit of an anti-fairy tale. Basically, it's the whole prince rescues damsel in distress from the dragon, and she goes home to with the prince, and everything is not perfect. It's not happily ever after for her. So I still don't know what I'm going to rate this book, because I do realize that the author intended for this book to be uncomfortable, and I think she did a really good job in that aspect. But I was very uncomfortable reading this book, so I don't know if I should rate higher because she did what she intended, or I should rate it low because she did what she intended. So there's just lots about this book. But yeah, I don't know what else to say. So go ahead, Desiree.
Oh, can I add something real quick? Because we're going to be talking about this book in the live show, I do want to add on to the content warnings for anybody who may be watching. Content warnings that we're probably going to be talking about include animal cruelty and death, misogynistic views, humiliation, sexual assault, rape, attempted rape, cheating, and self-harm. And I think that's everything I have written down. I don't know if anybody has anything to add on that.
That makes me feel like I missed some things. But hi, I'm Desiree from Libri Labra. I think the book makes you think about a lot, specifically, how we live in a patriarchy and how for so much time women have played this kind of silent role in society. Like, we're there to look pretty, we're there to be spoken to, and not for us to speak up. We're there to do the more gentle works like needlepoint and blah blah blah. So it definitely like really puts that in your face for you to kind of process the kind of misogyny that we've lived with. I think like now it's getting somewhat better, but it's still something we face. And I don't think at any point, like, it definitely made me think about things, but I don't think at any point it made me feel super uncomfortable. I enjoyed the story. I was very interested in the story. I liked how it ended. There were a few things that I wish I had been able to get like a bit more information on. But I thought it was a very unique story. Like, I did see reviews and comparisons where they like referenced it as like the claiming of Sleeping Beauty, and I wouldn't say they were similar. I don't know why that comparison was made, but they kind of did say that it was something like a Sleeping Beauty fairy tale, and I don't even know if I would say that was a good comparison. But I did enjoy it. should I say my rating? Should we wait till the end? What?
No, yeah, go ahead.
I would say it's closer to a 4 for me. So.
And my name is Chloe. You guys are on my channel, Brunette Bibliophile. I remember when we picked this book, I was a little on the questioning it just because I don't tend to read fantasy, but ultimately the synopsis did win me over because it sounded very interesting. And ultimately I'm bummed because now I've had 2 months in a row where I didn't like the book, and I ended up giving it a 2, which I think is a generous 2. Yeah, at least from me. I still didn't have any expectations on it until Kat, you had said what was going on, like when we were doing Pages and Pals, and how there should have been trigger warnings. Because I hadn't seen any trigger warnings up until you said something. So after that, I went and I read all the trigger warnings on Goodreads, and I was very concerned going into this book, but I ultimately tried to have an open mind. That being said, there were some disgusting things that happened in this book, and things that honestly, like, because I did listen to the audiobook, while I was listening to it, were making me like sick to my stomach to hear. And I had such high hopes for this book, and ultimately I think there were just a lot of confusing elements added in with all those triggers, and I just didn't have a fun time with it. I feel like there were some interesting elements, and that's why I gave it a 2. I also have props for the short chapters because I do love a short chapter. But ultimately, my questions are, why is this book marketed as YA? Because I really don't think it is or should be YA. And I'm sure we'll talk about some of that stuff in our spoiler discussion. So I guess we'll just go ahead into that. And where does anybody want to start?
The fact that you completely missed all the signs about the ending. Chloe,
that seems like such a disservice to the book.
Like Chloe, like what were you doing? You were not paying attention to it.
You're making me feel like I need to go back and re-listen to it.
Chloe, the first mention, I don't even remember, something about how she felt better when it was warm. I was like, she's a dragon. That gave it away. And then when she was frozen, and then the only time she started feeling healthier was when she was with the glass blower. Girl, that should have been a huge giveaway. Like, she was near fire, like, and then the fact
not even that the amber eye thing came up like 11 billion times.
Yes. I'm like, Chloe, well, you like, I get it now. Chloe did not pay attention to the book, but anyway, yeah, she is a dragon. Chloe, she's a dragon.
I gathered that ending, at the end of the book.
Chloe, you did not pay attention to the ending too, because at the end he's describing how she turned from a dragon to a person. He pierced with the sword. He pierced like
underneath her arm.
Underneath her arm, there was like the soft spot. He pierced her, and then what was gross, he stuck his dick in the wound. Okay, I'm sorry, but it is what it is. It is what it is. He stuck his dick inside the wound, and that's how she transforms into a person.
Okay, well, for starters,
listen. His mother told him there were 3 things he needed to destroy the dragon. He needed his sword, he needed his brains, and he needed
the third thing.
His yard. Chloe, it says in the ending. And I'm like, how did you miss all of this?
Couple things. One, I remember the piercing in the armpit part. I also remember reading that in a review as well. And I remember because the review was like, I can't believe I just typed that. But then number 2 is that when I go to work tomorrow, because I know that book is sitting on the shelf, I will go get it and I will read the ending again because apparently I need to, even though I don't want to.
I mean, it was gross. And I was like reading that. I was like, I cannot talk about this with anyone else because they haven't read the book and it's really, really gross. But yes, he actually went and stuck his yard in the wound, and that's how she became a dragon. Okay, she's the dragon.
So I just want to say that last night I was listening to it in bed, like before going to sleep, and so John was kind of hearing some of it, and like I started this really late, so I paused it and I was like, 3 things, and she didn't say what the third thing was, right? And I was like, what do you think the third thing is, John? And he was like, his heart. And I was like, he said his heart, and then he said, I don't know, his brain. And then he's like, it better not be his penis. And I was like, wait a minute. Did you really think of that last? Because I feel like that was my first thought.
Okay, yeah.
He was like, I don't know.
I didn't even think about it. I completely forgot about what the 3 things were until it was mentioned at the end. And then it was mentioned. And then it was described as how he used it. And I was like, why? What? Like, how does this come into the author's mind? I'm like, oh, hey, I'm going to have him, molest this poor dragon. He's already wounded.
Again,
I'm just
why is it YA?
And I'm like, I want to ask this author this. How did that come into your brain? Like, I was like, his yard, and then I was thinking, is he gonna stick like his penis inside this dragon's wherever it is, her vagina? And I'm like,
well,
and then he sticks it in the wound, and I'm like, what the fuck is happening?
I read somewhere, and I don't remember the exact number, like the exact year, but I read that it was only recently that it was no longer illegal for a woman to reject sex from her husband. Like only with it, like recently.
Marital rape has not. It only became illegal within like the last,
like the 70s, I think 79.
Recently.
Yeah, like it was
very
recently.
Close. It's very disturbing, but it's only recently that marital rape became illegal.
So to me, I felt like it was speaking to that in some way, like this poor dragon was just chilling, not bothering anybody, and then it's always been done that way.
But they're not even married though. So I don't know how that excuse comes, but I'm just I remember. So the first instance where she becomes attracted to the fire is when he brings her back, and Tilly, her maid, stokes the fire, and she becomes attracted to the fire. That's when it gave away that she's definitely the dragon. And Chloe missed all the clues that were all over the book.
Okay, here's why I feel like I was not paying attention sometimes. Because there were some sections of the book that I was like so freaked out by, and I'll give an example in a second of like the most prominent one that's in my brain. That I was like, I don't want to listen to this, and I would like zone out a little bit, and then I feel like I was just so worried throughout reading the whole book because of the trigger warnings that I read, where I was like, and the entire time I was just like, why is this young adult, like, what is going on? But the thing that I like so prominently remember that I remember freaked me out was when he was taming the bird, and he was like,
yeah. I had to look that up. I was like, is that a thing that we did? And I'm like, yes.
And they were like sewing the eyes shut, and it freaked me out. I was like, oh, I don't want to read this anymore.
Apparently that was commonplace to do that, and then to unsew them shut at some point.
Okay, all right, no more. Moving on. Who wants to go?
You're muted, Kat.
Desiree, when Chloe was going through the list of trigger warnings, you said you thought you missed something. What did you think you missed?
Was that, like, when we say, did you say there was rape? Were you talking about the dragon's armpit?
Wasn't there a what? Go ahead, Kat.
I think it was an almost. I mean, he did.
It was like attempted.
Like,
He
I
did-
remember the stuff that went down in the carriage.
He did finger her. Remember when he
Okay.
was drunk and he went to her room, and that was the scene that got me really like that we weren't alive, and I was trying to remain collected at that scene because I read it during the live last week or
Okay, I may
whenever.
not have been like, because I remember that, but I may not have been like totally
Good.
concentrated on the scene because it
Good.
seemed like she was more curious about it than like
No.
not wanting to
Not to
participate.
me.
I mean, again, I don't think I was like totally concentrating on what was happening in the moment. I just
Yeah,
know that
it
something
was.
happened.
I don't remember. They had a
Because
celebration or something. I think there had a celebration for her, and he came into her room and he was drunk, and he assaulted her. He never, obviously never went all the way, but he definitely assaulted her, and she was. I remember the scene that she was holding on to her links to make sure that he didn't attack, and I got the feeling that she was also holding on to the links as like
a safety thing.
a safety, yes, a way to feel safety.
Because like I thought it was after that she got all curious about the servant, and like because he was visiting the servant and he wanted to know like if the servant found stuff pleasurable, only because like it just seemed like she didn't know how to react to what was happening to her. You know what I'm saying? Like that was the impression that I got, that she was like, I don't know what's happening. What is this? I don't know if I feel anything about this. Like she was just very inquisitive. So my perception of that scene was just a little bit less intense.
I can see how you see that because she did go to the I think her name was Fabiana. She did go to her afterwards.
Yeah, that was her name.
To be like, hey, you can continue doing this. I'll do it, but if you want to take over, you can. But when I was reading that, that's not how I saw it. Maybe I was reading too much into it, but yeah.
I was a little like not weirded out by that, but I was just thinking like, you're the future queen and you're just like, you're acting like you're beneath this person who's a servant, even though I mean you're not. Like you're like, it's fine to just be like, yeah, you can keep doing it, but like you're acting like you're beneath her, really. Like you're about to be a queen.
I didn't get that impression. I felt like she was just like, I would just be tolerating it. So if you can satisfy him in that way and I don't have to think about it as much.
Yeah, that's how I saw it.
Okay, yeah, I see where you're coming with that. I do remember listening to that, and I feel like I was thinking the same thing. I don't know. Ignore me then on that. I don't know. I need to collect my thoughts here.
You know, the one thing that I found really confusing was the Mother Queen, or the Queen Mother, whatever her official title was. Because clearly she was also a dragon. And like I couldn't tell if she was like, get in line, tradition is tradition, do what you gotta do, or if she was saying, be different. Like it felt like there was mixed signals coming from the queen.
Yeah, I don't understand. And I also don't know if she knew that she's a dragon and that, this poor girl was also a dragon.
She seemed very aware of the process. She's like, oh, it's almost complete because Amma's eyes were dimming.
Why would she want? Yeah, I know. The queen was one that I didn't understand. I was like, if you know the kind of life she's gonna have, why are you helping your son?
And then, like, what was the deal with the cats? And were the cats all her cats, or were the cats from all the queens before her?
I think because she talks about when she visits the queen, they talk about how each different queen has something about them and helps them get through. So, for example, the queen before her, the one who liked pain and eventually killed herself, that was her vice. She needed pain to get through her everyday. Maybe the queen, she needs her cats to get through the everyday. And then with Amma, she needed the whistle, the glass blower, and her links in order to get through every day. So I think the being a cat lady just, was just her vice of getting through her life.
I think the queen mother did know that she was that they were both dragons, because I remember there was a scene where the maid Tilly was telling Amma. She was telling Amma how the queen had told her to make sure she stays warm. So I think the queen mother knew everything.
Right, yeah, I think so too. I mean, all the signs are there, but I just don't understand why she would continue the tradition of allowing these men to continue to enslave the dragons. You know what I mean? Herself being the dragon.
Think about society now. There are still tons of women that are like traditionalists and just want to be homemakers and just want to stay home and let their husband work and not worry about politics and not, like.
I guess because we've read the book through the entire perspective of Amma, and Amma, bless her heart, she was very innocent, and you could tell she wanted more, and she wanted her freedom, kind of like the Lynx. But she also didn't know what was happening. She was very innocent in a lot of ways, and in a lot of ways we also saw, we witnessed the sexual assault. We witnessed the humiliation of him putting the collar on her and parading her around. And I guess I always thought of this house as abusive, she needs to get away. I guess I didn't think about that her mother might have been happy, content in her life, and just
Well, everyone kept telling her, just accept your role, just accept your place, right? And like, if you stop fighting and you're like, okay, and you just do what people tell you, and they keep you fed and keep you warm and keep you safe for the most part, like, I think it's easy to just get lost in the day-to-day if you're not wanting. Because even at the end, she says, no, but I desire something different.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not sure I fully understood the thing with the eye wall. Chloe just made a face. Like, what eye wall?
I'm not surprised.
It sounds familiar, but it sounds familiar, but I'm like, what?
So there was literally a wall of eyes. And like, there was like a belief that pulling an eye off the wall would grant you a wish.
Yes, I remember this part. Okay.
I'm not surprised that Chloe doesn't remember this.
But like, I guess I got confused because originally I thought, okay, are these people's eyes on the wall? But then it turns out that the glass blower had been making the eyes.
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't really understand anything about the eye and the wall of the eyes, and I didn't really get it.
And I just thought that was weird. Like, why is that the wish granting mechanism in here? But there was a line in the book that I think the glass blower had said to her. He was like, the weak make wishes, the strong act, something like that. And I thought that was a pretty good quote. Although I also appreciated her response, which was, what if my wish was the act? So I don't know. I thought that was interesting.
I feel like I forgot the eye wall, but I remembered like how she always carried one around, and then she buried it in the snow or something like that. But I do remember
when she released the Lynx.
Yes, that was sad too.
I think it was sad, but I think it was more sad at the fact, although I understand why he wouldn't, but the Lynx never looked back as he ran to his freedom. And I was like, you did whip him. I'd be mad too. But
I know it would kind of defeat the whole point of the story, but I had wished there was like a secondary romance. Like,
yes, I was hoping. I was like, is the glass blower? I was like, is the glass blower gonna be like the other romance guy? Because
I thought Colin was.
Like, I need some kind of redemption on the love story here, because the prince is not a good one, and I'm just like, I am glad that the prince died though. But yes, I was hoping for a second, like some kind of like other, like maybe another dragon popped up somewhere. I don't know, but I was hoping, even if it was on the last page. But no, we didn't get that. And I understand why, because
Right. Yeah. I
while
mean,
this book was very patriarchal, all about the guys, in its essence, at the very end, it was all about a woman's right to choose, and she
right.
chose her
It's a
freedom.
feminist story. Yeah.
Yeah. So
But like, did you think the prince was going to be a douche from the beginning?
he gave vibes that he was already douchey, like on like at the very beginning, like when he was like as he was about to set out to rescue the princess or the damsel, whatever. He was having relations with, I think it was Fabiana, I don't know, and he was like, I took away her virginity, and he was just having so much fun with it, and I was like, I don't like you. You're very douchey.
I
You give this.
totally forgot about that because whoever it was that he was messing around with was the one who told him about the fleshy part in
Yeah.
the yeah.
Mhm.
I
And I
forgot
was
that.
like, it's fine, she's obviously consenting, but you're way too confident in this, and you give me bad vibes. So yeah, I knew from the beginning that he gave me douchey vibes. So but I honestly didn't think it was that bad until the rape scene, and that's why the rape scene got me shook a little. And then I didn't think he could do worse until the humiliation scene. And then I was like, I really don't like you, and I hope you die. And he does die, which I was very happy.
In the brutalist of ways.
Yeah. But yeah.
I know, like, everybody in the whole book was just like, what are you doing? Stop having thoughts. Just do what you're supposed to do. Like,
I mean, I don't know how long. I mean, the book doesn't really go into details onto how long this was a tradition. But again, it was always a tradition that the son would go out, kill the dragon, and come back with his damsel, and that's the queen, the future queen. And it was just like a copy and paste on every single generation. So I don't know how long this has been going on, and it just became sort of the norm for these people that the queen just appeared and she was needed help adjusting. And I don't think they were quite ready for a future queen to want so much.
maybe I don't know like enough about dragon or dragon myth and legend or whatever, but are there many stories where dragons were also able to transform into humans? Because like, what was the purpose of that other than to somehow perpetuate this tradition?
I'm sure there are stories somewhere that I don't. It's like you. I don't know much about the history or the mythology behind dragons, and whether any of them had the capabilities of turning into a human or whatever, or vice versa. But I'm sure there are something out there. I'm not sure.
I feel like between this book and Before She Ignites, when we read that a couple of months ago, I think this is the most dragon related books I've read ever, considering we read 2 in 1 year.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what I want to say about the book. What did you? I had like so many mixed feelings about Paulin too. Like he
I
definitely
don't
had
get
like
his point in the
he
story.
he definitely had like a creepy airiness to him. But then I was like, is he going to be a love interest? Is he going to be like nicer to her? I mean, it seemed like he was trying to help her because he was like trying to help her train the lynx so that she could keep it.
Mm-hmm.
But then obviously he was like BFF with the king.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel, to be honest, I feel like this book was too short, and in a way that it just didn't fully flesh out some of the characters, and it didn't fully flesh out some of the ideas that it wanted to convey. Like I wanted to know more about the Queen Mother. I wanted to know more about the glass blower. It just seemed he like was there for a point, but and then he disappeared and I'm like, okay, what happens next? And then the end was just like, hey, I killed the king. And then literally the last sentence is the Queen Mother looking out the window and she sees a dragon flying away. And I'm like, really, that's it? So I do feel like some of the ideas, the plot points on the book wasn't fully fleshed out.
Well, I mean, she got her freedom back, which was what clearly she wanted, because she didn't want to be part of that society. And that's why I think like the Queen Mother was sending mixed signals, because some of the last things she said to Amma was remember. Like, I assume that means remember you were a freaking dragon, do something about it. Like, like.
And what's funny is that unless the prince sired any children with all of his, adventures with all of the other girls, his line dies because the queen isn't going to have any more kids. So,
but she's queen again officially.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Damn. Well, she just like, set the whole house on fire and bounced. Literally, she burned down the whole thing. Because there's no more to the line. There's no more to, because the Queen Mother can't have another kid. There's no other kid to marry another dragon. There's no other like nothing. So she just broke everything.
I mean, when you think about it, isn't that like the metaphor for like she like demolished the patriarchy or something?
Pretty
like
much,
that?
yeah. Yeah.
So really, this whole book was like an underlying metaphor for feminism. It was just done in really jacked ways.
I did like her relationship with the glass blower, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I know at some point he was kind of exploiting her because
he was selling her artwork.
Yeah. But it seemed like he was the most accommodating for her not wanting to color within the lines. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He was like, let's not tell anybody. You can keep coming down here, making your sculptures, doing what you want to do, but we don't have to broadcast that to everyone.
And I'm surprised, like, when she hurt herself, like her hand, I'm surprised the king, like the prince, didn't fly into her. I don't know. He just seems like that. I for sure thought he was gonna kill the glass blower, but he didn't, and I was surprised by that.
I was pissed off that he was like, I think he said something along the lines like, you have to take better care of my bride's hand or something like that. And she was like, you mean my hand? Exactly. Like, that's just so gross. Just being spoken to as someone else's property.
And I'm like, hold on. He kept repeating, I saved you. And I'm like, so? Just doesn't listen, I'd be forever grateful for anyone who has saved my life, but that don't mean I'm giving myself to you. Okay, that's not how this works.
Remember, they like he was also referring to her as the vessel too. So like she was like the bride, the vessel, and then herself.
That's just so gross. Like, listen, I am not an incubator for your seed. That's not how this works.
That's how she was talked about by multiple people. Like,
I was like, I don't. Yeah. I think I am, discussing this book, as disturbing as it was and as uncomfortable as this book made me. I think in a lot of ways it did its job. It meant to make it uncomfortable. I think the author meant it to be uncomfortable, and so I think I'm gonna give it 4 stars, and I already rated it. So, despite everything. Yeah.
That was going to be my question to you was, are you heading towards like a higher rating or a lower rating?
I was between a 3 and a 4, but it's all dependent on how I felt, because I knew I was uncomfortable with the book, but I didn't know whether I should give the author a higher rating because she meant the book to be uncomfortable, and she got her point across that this is a very patriarchal society, and ultimately the bride means nothing besides being a vessel for the future king, whatever. And she meant to make it out. So should I give her a higher, or should I give her a lower rating because it was so uncomfortable and really, really made me uncomfortable reading some of the scenes in this book?
I mean, I feel like that's kind of like giving a book a low rating because you didn't like the main character that was supposed to be unlikable, you know? I don't know.
I feel like at the very least, this book, as well as like other books, I've seen it more in recent releases, like 2020, 2021 releases. They need to do a page at the beginning where it has a trigger warnings.
Yes, like for example, I was thinking of Girls of Paper and Fire. We discussed this book, and I remember when I started reading this book, I even mentioned it to you guys that at the very beginning, before the story even starts, there's a lone page at the very beginning of the book that says trigger warning for sexual assault, and I was like, thank you to this author, because then I could mentally prepare myself for whatever's going to happen in this book. And I was so thankful for that book, for that trigger warning, because it was at that very beginning before anything started. It was just there, and I was like, I wish that this book did that.
I've seen it
I shouldn't have to go to the reviews on Goodreads to read what other people have said about this book.
I have actually seen it with, I just finished a book like last month. It was Honey and Issue's Guide to Not Dating. That has a trigger warnings list at the front. And then I don't have it on me, but Rise to the Sun by Leah Johnson. I'm reading that now, and that also has a trigger warnings page on the front. I feel like that needs to be a trend with releases from now on.
When was this book released?
It was like 2017 or 18. Well, it's funny though, because when I was tweeting out, well, it's not funny, but when I was tweeting out the live show link, there's, you know how you on Twitter you get those notifications where it's like, oh, we think you'll like this or something like that. Somebody had tweeted that they opened like an ebook, and there was an author's note at the beginning that just says, I'm not a fan of trigger warnings, and I feel like they take away from the reader experience. So if you need one, this book is probably not for you. And I'm like, what book is this?
Well, I'm not going to read that book.
Exactly. That's why I'm trying to figure out what book this is.
It's like this, for me, I know a lot of people say that trigger warnings are like a spoiler, and I'm like, why? You telling me that there's a sexual assault scene in this book is not a spoiler. You're not telling me a spoiler would for you to tell me that the prince dies at the end. That would be a spoiler. For you to tell me that the princess turns into a dragon in the end, that's a spoiler. Telling me that there's humiliation and there's a scene of sexual assault or whatever mentions of suicide, that is not a trigger warning. It just tells you that this is going to happen, but it's not giving you any context about the book.
Yeah, I feel like recently, I don't write a lot of Goodreads reviews unless it's for like an arc, but I do try and put in the content warnings, and I did that for like a book that I just finished the other day. And even with the warnings, it didn't give anything away, because if you word it right, then it's not a spoiler. So like if there's like for the book that I wrote this for, like the example was, trigger warning for parental death, and then I did trigger warning for on page death, but it doesn't say, well, it kind of says who, but it doesn't say who or which parent or whose parents and stuff like that, and it's not a spoiler.
But in a way, you said that the author wrote that at the beginning of her book. In a way, she's giving you a trigger warning. She's just not telling you what the trigger warning is.
Yeah, but I feel like blanket trigger warnings is not a good choice.
I mean, yes, but at the very least, you said something.
I feel like, if we're going to go down that route as a standard, then I would probably want just the same kind of warnings that we have on like video games and movies and stuff. Where it says it has sexual violence, or it has like, drug use. And because I feel like, I mean, I'm not somebody that has come across much material that has triggered me in any way. So I know that has an impact on how I feel about it. But I think the people who don't like trigger warnings are just so afraid that that's going to be used for the. Okay, I read a book recently that was literally about like thinking about things scientifically, making sure that you have evidence, right? And as I was reading it, the one thing that I kept thinking of was that the people who need to read this most are not going to be the people who read it, right? And so I feel like there's a little bit of that in there, that if you start tagging it with all these different things, that it's going to be avoided. I mean, still it's people's own choice, and I get that. I just don't know how specific you would be, because like, you know, maybe some people are triggered by the thought of like feet. Are you gonna put that in there? Like, I just don't think you can cover everybody's triggers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but you can cover the very basics. Like, you can start somewhere.
Right. That's what I was saying. Like kind of like how we have for movies and video games and stuff. But I don't know.
I got nothing.
I feel like that was a tangent.
No. I mean, it made a point.
Because this book is filled with so many trigger warnings and it needed a page.
But like, I don't know if I saw anywhere that it was being marketed as YA. Kat, was it? How did you end up coming across the book? Like, how did you end up with the book in your possession? Did you actually buy it, or did you get it somewhere?
I back when book outlet did not, cancel themselves. I bought this book off of book outlet. It was on their YA section, like, so it looked good. It sounded interesting, so I bought it. That was back when I bought books like crazy.
And I can say that, at least in my library system, the call number is for the YA section.
Yeah. I don't think, I think this needs to be at least categorized as, and I know that new adult is a new umbrella of books, but I don't think this is the young adult, and I don't think it should be marketed as young adult. It is way too graphic for what young adults should be. But I think the author probably did that because, I don't know.
And the problem is, like, even with new adult being like a newer thing, when it comes to like bookstores or libraries, you're not going to have a new adult section, because like I can think of plenty of books that I've read recently that are the new adult category, but they're listed and marketed as YA. Maybe not marketed, but they're definitely listed as YA. Is there anything else that we want to add? Desiree, if you're talking to us, you're muted.
I said I was trying to avoid going into it too early on, but I feel like that ending should be discussed.
Sure.
Okay.
So, I mean, she was down there doing her thing. She was making a glass dragon. She seemed very happy, very involved. It was like 3 days that she spent working on that thing. And the king just came down and smashed it.
Because she forgot that it was their wedding day, and she wasn't getting prepared.
She's like, I'm just trying to do my thing with the glass blowing.
But I don't know. I love that, he destroyed her dragon, but then she like picked up pieces of it and was basically going to stab him with it because he was threatening her. And she was like, try me. She's just like, try me. And then she ate his heart. And that's how she became a dragon again. And then flew away. Assumably to live happily ever after by herself somewhere.
I mean, at least I'm happy that she ate his heart and not something else. Because the way this author goes, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case.
Did you think that was weird? Was that an expected ending?
And honestly, not gonna lie, it reminded me of Daenerys. And that scene, where she ate the dragon. Was it a dragon? I don't know. It was
no.
Heart.
Didn't she eat like a horse's heart?
Was it? I don't remember. It was a beast's heart.
I think it was like a horse's heart.
That scene reminded me of her. So, except that that was like a bonding moment between her and Dragon. Was that his name? Yeah. So.
I don't know anything about Game of Thrones, so I'm just kind of here.
I don't think I have any more thoughts other than like at first I wasn't sure where the story was going. At first I didn't really like the narrator too much because I was like, why is she whispering this story? Like
I like the narrator.
But later on, I don't know, after I sped it up a little bit later on, I was like, okay, and I thought she was delivering it pretty well. I give it 4 stars. I thought it was good. Like after the first 3 chapters, then I felt pretty invested in the story and what was happening and why Amma didn't know what she couldn't remember anything. Like she couldn't remember her purpose, her feelings, her thoughts, like nothing. Like she couldn't connect to anything. So I was like, what is going on here? But I don't know what else I expected to happen. I think though, having read so many of the trigger warnings on Goodreads, I kind of felt like way worse stuff was going to happen. Not that what did happen wasn't bad, but I was really expecting them to kill the Link cub. Like Sorrow, I was expecting them to like brutally hurt the Lynx, and I was like, please let that not be a thing. Because I think that would have destroyed me.
Yeah.
So did you feel like over prepared for the book and then
maybe
like it
a little
wasn't
bit
as bad?
Yeah, I think a little bit.
Okay.
Like again, there was messed up things in there, but not more so than other books I've read with those kind of things in it. So like I was worried it was going to destroy me and I was going to be crying or something along those lines.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else they want to add on?
I guess my final question is just, would you consider reading more from this author?
I don't read the reviews first.
Yeah, read the reviews first.
Yes, I will.
I'm actually going to look and see if she has anything else out. I don't know. But yeah, definitely read the reviews first.
Would you, Desiree?
Yeah.
Yeah, she does have other things out. Actually, one of these, I think this is her most recent, is called Red Hood, and it was released last year. The cover is familiar to me. I don't recognize anything else that she's released. Okay. Well, I don't know. I'm gonna go back and reread the ending tomorrow, when I pull it off the shelf. But I don't think it's gonna change anything significantly for me. I was still disgusted.
I mean, I don't think the ending in and of itself is anything that needs revisiting. I think it was just the fact that the path was laid out the entire time.
Well, apparently I need revisiting. Apparently it needs revisiting for me.
Did you only listen to it, or did you listen to it and read it? Or
I only listened to it because I listen on my commute, and then I would also like listen while like making breakfast in the morning and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah. If I had only listened to it, I probably wouldn't have processed it the same way.
Yeah. So I'm not going to reread it though. No. But I do want to go back and reread the ending and like, yeah. Anyway, what's going on next month? A lot of things going on next month. Pages and Pals, which is a monthly live read-in hosted by the 3 of us over on Kathleen's channel, is happening on the 20th, November 20th. That's a Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern. Again, that's over on Kathleen's channel, so that'll be linked in the description below along with Desiree's. the three of us are going to be at Y'all Fest this year, being safe and vaccinated and enjoying each other's company. So that's why things are happening a little later in November, because we'll be gone for a weekend. We are reading for book club. I don't know, none of us have a copy because it's not out yet. We're going to be reading Gilded by Marissa Meyer. That comes out on, it's either the 2nd or the 5th. I can't remember. I think it's the 2nd. So we will be reading that for the month of November, and our live discussion is going to be on November 21st at 6 p.m. Eastern on this channel. That is the Sunday before Thanksgiving for those in the U.S. who celebrate. We want to make sure we get our live shows done before the holidays so we can spend them with our families. So I think that's everything, unless somebody else has something that I'm missing. Pages and Pals Book Club. Sounds good. But yeah, that is all from us, and we hope to see you guys at Pages and Pals next month and discussing Gilded with us next month as well. So we will see you then. Bye.